mentioned, a lot of newbies around the table, so welcome, Phil, to your first meeting. Happy to have you here. And this is our first meeting for 2024, so we do a roll call, so we go around the room and we say our names, so we'll have a record of that. So we'll start with you, Mary.
Mary Morgan.
Dee Del Rosa, ESD.
Kate Rosenberger.
Cheryl Gillian, Controller's Office.
Jane Cooper Smith.
Michael Hober.
Heather Robinson.
Phil Amerson.
And Chris Cockrum.
And folks in the back for us today as
Paul
well.
Ash, ex officio.
John.
John Zodi.
Tina Peterson.
Matthew Burns.
Yeah.
I's Pratt.
All right, great. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Happy to have you here. So first up on the agenda, approval of the December minutes. Were there any questions, comments, corrections to the minutes?
Do we need to recuse ourselves from this vote if we were not present at the December meeting? Alex? Are we able to vote to approve if we weren't here in December? Okay.
Yeah.
I think you are, but in some cases, people have recused themselves.
Okay.
They didn't feel comfortable.
All right,
Yeah.
thanks.
So if you want to.
No,
Jen, either
I
way.
trust your judgment, so if you all recommend approval, then I'll follow suit.
Okay, all right. So we had no corrections or comments, so hearing none, do we have a motion?
I'll move that we approve the December minutes.
Chris. Second, Mary. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, election of officers. Dee, I'm gonna kind of let you take the wheel on this one.
Okay, well, this is gonna be fun because I've never had to do this before. So annually, is it annually that we do this? We decide on who will be our chairperson, our vice chairperson, and our secretary for the BUEA. We did it last year, but I think Larry took the helm on it. So I guess we can start with secretary. If anyone has a nomination for secretary, the incumbent is Mary Morgan.
I nominate reappointing Mary Morgan too.
Great. Then I'll second that.
Okay. Sorry, I have to, I'm trying to take my Miranda and do this.
Mary, that's if you want to do it.
I would be happy to do that.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion, a second, so I think we'll then.
And I see no other challengers, so.
See, no, yes, is there anyone, okay, no other challengers, then there's a motion, a second. All those in favor of appointing Mary, reappointing Mary to the position of secretary?
Aye.
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 Okay, any opposed? All right, motion carries.
And then, just for my records, Chris, you were first, and then who seconded?
Oh, I think,
I made the
Oh,
motion.
you
And then I
made the
made-
motion
I
and you
seconded.
seconded, okay. Okay. And then, for vice chair, do we have any nominees for the vice chair position?
I would like to nominate Melissa Spinelli. Is it okay that she's not here?
I think that it is okay that she's not here.
Does she, have you talked to her about it? Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
I've spoken to her. No, we've
That's what
spoken
happens
to her
when you
about
don't
it.
show up for meetings.
Yeah.
You get nominated to do things.
No, I think that she might have a hard time connecting to the Zoom meeting right now. I knew that she was going to try and jump online, but.
So
All right.
I'll second that, or did somebody else?
Okay, so we have a motion for Felisa Spinelli as vice chair from Kate, and a second from Mary. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right.
Easy enough. All right, and then chairperson.
For another round of service.
Yeah. There you go.
All right. All right. Thank you, Jane.
Oh, you're so welcome.
Jane, Mary. First and second. All right, and, what?
Yeah, I know. I'm serving as the,
Yeah.
I was vice chair last year,
Yeah,
so
you-
I'm serving as chair today, so I guess
Yes.
well, there's a motion from Jane to elect me into the chair's position, a second by Mary, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, great. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Heather.
All right, the election. Okay, so now that we have officers in place, we have to update signing privileges for our accounts, correct, Dee?
Yeah, and we do need to have a little bit of discussion about that since you're here, this might be helpful. So, right now on some of our accounts, the signing privileges are so old that no one that exists on the BUEA in the past, 12 months is actually a signer. So what we need is a staff member, which is usually the executive director of ESD. And then we need 2 board members to also have signing privileges. This isn't something that, mostly it's contract signing privileges where I send you a contract, I need your approval. But as far as the banking privileges, it's not a heavy lift. It's really a lot of just larger projects where financial documents might need to be signed. If there were an occasion where I wasn't able to get Jane to sign something, I would probably come to one of you to help me out with that. So that's kind of it as far as signing privileges.
So it's my understanding we need to have a couple of officers for signers, and
And
it's,
I will say this, I know that Mary still has privileges on several things. So I think that keeping Mary as a signer would be a great idea.
I was gonna suggest chair and vice chair would be appropriate. I don't
You don't
mind.
mind?
I don't mind, but it seems to me that if that's easier, that's fine, but if, I would have suggested chair and vice chair,
Okay.
just for keeping with the hierarchy. But it does, I mean, I don't think I have actually signed anything other than the documents giving me privilege to sign, so it's truly not a.
And I feel like traditionally it is like the secretary and then one of the higher officers that have the signing privileges. So,
I don't think it's uncommon for a secretary to have signing privileges, so.
okay.
um,
Plus the, getting all of this transferred over to someone else is it's not so much a complex process, but it is an
It's kind of a
involved
pain,
one.
yeah. Yeah.
So
Right.
the less that we have to do that, I think probably the better off we will be.
So Mary will remain a signer in her role as secretary, and then we need another officer.
Yes. So, and since we can't speak for Felisa, we can push this as far as that goes and just make sure that we have the executive director position in place so we can continue to,
Sorry, the ESD director?
yes, the
Okay.
ESD director.
So if we approve at this time, Mary and I could sign.
Yes.
But it's not like we're going to do a series of bank documents and then redo them in
No,
a
no,
month.
no.
So I kind of would recommend that if it's okay with Heather, we just have her as a signer. So Heather, Mary, and me,
Okay.
so that we can wrap it up.
I'm fine with that because, to your point, there will be documentation from the bank. So even though if we left it, tabled it for our next meeting,
We would
we,
do
we,
a whole
we
round
wouldn't
of
be able to
everything.
get the paperwork
Okay.
needed. So I think time is of the essence here. So I'm happy to serve as a signer then.
So if we need a motion, I move that.
Yes, I think it needs to just be reflected in the minutes for the bank as part of their,
Yeah, it just needs to
Documents.
be reflected in the minutes that we decided on who will be the signers for the accounts.
okay. So Jane in her role, Mary as secretary, me as newly elected chair. We have a motion on the floor from Phil. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Michael. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. Thanks, everyone. All the housekeeping for the first meeting.
Getting it out of there.
Getting it out of there. All right, so let's pivot then to financial reports.
Actually, Heather, could
Yes,
I
ma'am.
make a motion to move new business up so that the Tina could be released from this meeting? And John, is that okay? I mean, I know no one said anything to me, but I just know they're under a lot of time pressure right now, and it might be helpful to at least bump that item up.
Good idea.
Okay.
Excellent. Cheryl, does that work for your schedule? Will you be able to?
Yeah, I can leave, yeah, I'm gonna leave
Sorry,
after
Okay.
most, but no, that's
Okay.
fine.
Okay, all right. Great idea. So I think then we're going to pivot to our guest. We have Tina Peterson and John Zodi joining us today from CDFI Friendly Bloomington. And they have a request.
Yeah, I'll switch with you.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll move back up, no problem.
Hi. Thanks for having us here today.
Absolutely. All right, you have the floor.
Thank you. Well, I'll launch here. I think you have a pretty thorough explanation of what we're seeking today in the memo that was provided to you. But it's really a pleasure for me to be able just to add a little bit of context to that. I had the pleasure of being around when we originally conceived of the concept of CDFI Friendly Bloomington. It would have been 2016, 2017 when we were having that conversation. And really it began as a discussion among a small group of local stakeholders about the importance of having additional flexible assets, right, and to provide access to capital in a more equitable way, I guess would be the way to think about it. And the original idea was that maybe that we should have our own CDFI, Community Development Finance Institution, in our community. And so initially a group of us hired, and the Community Foundation provided the initial funding. So I'm here today wearing my Community Foundation hat as well as my the fiscal sponsor for CDFI Friendly Bloomington and the chair of the CDFI Friendly Board of Directors. But Community Foundation provided some original funding. We did an analysis, right? And what came back was that we really weren't big enough to have our own CDFI or to have it capitalized in a way that would be meaningful, given the size of our community, or that it would take a very long time to get there. So really, working with this consultant, Mark Pensky, who was from the industry, we developed this new model, right? CDFI Friendly Communities. At the time, we just called it CDFI Friendly Bloomington. But the idea was that that the organization would facilitate relationships between local entities that could use financial support and CDFI entities around the country. And there are CDFI across the United States, many with various specializations. And so, but they don't have the footprint to have somebody in a market like ours, right? In a smaller market, you just don't have that kind of representation. So the idea was, how can we attract more capital to our community from those, right, who really focus on the underserved, those who don't have access to resources. And really, I think, built a model that has proven to be a pretty effective one. And in fact, as was in your memo, it's being replicated now. It's almost like a whole little industry's popped up out of this concept of CDFI Friendly America, which is an entity now that helps other communities develop the model that we have. And I think part of the reason why we're here today, and John's the expert on all of these things, among others, is because we've been learning as we've been going, right? And so initially we thought these CDFIs would not be interested in our small community that they didn't know a lot about if we didn't participate in the deals and we didn't de-risk, right, these by participating in them. And while that is certainly something that we've done quite a bit of, we found that isn't always necessary, but we play a very critical role. And when we say operational, we certainly need operational support. But part of that is really building building the relationships with individuals who need the capital and supporting them through technical assistance to prepare them to be eligible for funding from others. And so I think we're here as a reflection of the fact that we've evolved to meet the needs of the market within this new concept that continues, I think, to grow. So you can address whatever I missed.
No, I think I would just echo what Tina said. It's nice to see all of you, meet you. But I think what Tina said, there is a need out there. We've seen a lot of housing need in particular through the housing study that I know the city did and that regional opportunity initiatives did and is being updated. And so there's a lot of demand out there. And when you see the folks who are involved picking up on the work Jane has done in my short month that I've been here in this position, you see sort of at the grassroots level these organic projects that pop up and people seeing a need and having a need for affordable financing. And so I've seen that right away. And I think this is where we can fill that important role in a community here where there's so much nonprofit work going on. And then, of course, around the region, too, is important. So I wouldn't have anything else to say.
So, in full disclosure, I am a CDFI friendly board member, so anything that's voted on today, I will have to recuse myself. But
Same here.
Actually, we don't, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
You-
So Jane and I actually had this discussion with legal. It is actually Jane who will need to recuse herself,
oh, okay.
as you two are BUA board members. So we had a discussion with Larry about this. So it's actually the opposite of what we were thinking.
So we
Okay.
could vote.
So you can vote on this.
Oh, okay. Well, that thank you for the update on that.
I think the idea is that your, well, and specifically Chris's appointment to the CDFI board is in direct support of BUEA's mission and is
Mhm.
contractually required, so the BUEA wants him to be advocating for the work of CDFI friendly, and it just shows the mission alignment between the two organizations. But for me, since I was recently employed by and therefore personally benefiting from CDFI friendly, I do need to recuse
Okay.
myself from the vote.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But I'm happy to answer any questions, too, if that's useful.
Okay, well, thank you for the legal clarification on that. So just one thing I know sometimes, and thank you for, John, this great summary, this memorandum that was included in the packet for the meeting. I think this is really good. But just as a quick understanding for the group here, what does CDFI Friendly do? Like, what types of financing do they do that traditional banks may not be able to? And just maybe speak to a couple of the projects that CDFI Friendly has done and what you've brought to the region. And I know you're new in this role too, but I know you're already well versed. So
Sure.
talk to us a little bit about that, so the group kind of understands this idea. CDFI is not something that we hear every day necessarily or understand. So talk about the benefits that it brings to our region and our community.
Sure. Well, I think one of the most attractive roles it can play and what kind of came to mind and sparked my own interest is the ability to be nimble, right? And that's really important when you're trying to get a closing done or a project going and you're working with lots of different people that are trying to access lots of different types of money. Having come from the government side, most recently, that can take a while. And there are lots of different regulations involved. And this is a regulated industry, don't get me wrong. But the ability to be able to come in and say, can you do something quickly, and being able to provide that assistance with some institutional knowledge of the different mechanics that happen. When you're looking at housing particularly, or small business, which Jane came to the role with a lot more small business experience than I have, just as a small business owner herself. But the ability to be nimble, I think, is really important to get a project off the ground, because it may be one that is not something everyone knows about. So we're working with one individual in the community right now who has a few different projects that they're interested in pursuing. And that's an incredibly, I think CDFI Friendly has been an incredibly important resource to them so far, because they're understanding what all is out there. They have their own financial experience and their own business, but housing is their focus here, and they're kind of getting into that. That's not something they've done, and so they're learning all about the affordable housing industry. But at the end of the day, they need to know, what can I don't have lots of personal equity to put in myself, what's out there for me. And so just this morning, I was going back and forth with them about what can happen. And so it is that sort of quick customer service technical assistance, the ability to be nimble and get a deal moving, or at least the path on what it's going to be. When you look at that capital stack of what happens with every project, what kind of financing is lined up. Stuff changes immediately. One changed yesterday from today, and so I think that is a significant role that we can play. And then that boots on the ground that we mentioned in your memo. When a CDFI is, even in Indianapolis, they're not immediately aware of what's going on in Bloomington or in the 13-county region that we serve, and we have those relationships, and we can literally be on the ground. I was out and about on Monday around the region a little bit, and so we have that ability to be local and nimble and help people, get people connected more quickly than I think they otherwise would have.
Can I offer two more concrete points for how they differ from traditional lenders? I think that's a really good example of what it's like in practice and in the actual deals. But they have a burden of technical assistance. So of the nearly 1,400 CDFIs nationally, they're required to provide technical assistance to borrowers. So that means if an individual comes to them and they have a business model that has some issues and they've been rejected by a bank, the CDFI can either provide direct technical assistance or they're required to help connect them with a technical assistance program. So they are not saying no. They never say no and walk away. They'll say, not yet, but we can help you in X, Y, or Z way. And so they're building that financial literacy in that way. And then the second piece is, I would call it, it's patient capital, which kind of gets at what John was saying. So because these lenders are mission driven, they have to identify a primary market that they're trying to serve, which could be based on a census tract, which is what CDFI Friendly has identified. You know, they've identified a geography that they want to serve. Other CDFIs might support only affordable housing development or, you know, small business owners, whatever. But because they're committed to that mission, they're going to be more patient and more flexible on how they get to the finish line or the starting line with the borrowers.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks for all of that good information. So the request then today before us, so going back to 2018, there was $1 million of seed money that BUEA gave to the startup for CDFI friendly Bloomington, and today then the request is up to $250,000 of a reallocation of the funds that they are holding so that they may be shifted to using for operations. So there's no request for additional funds today. It's just simply a request for reallocation of funds that are already being held originally for capital. Mary, you have a question?
Yeah, the memo says that you'll be providing a more detailed plan about the use of those funds, but generally the categories seem to be, are you planning on hiring additional staff or consultants, or what, do you have sort of a general sense of what that would entail?
I can speak to that a little bit, Tina. So the trajectory of the organization is, we're still a friendly model right now, and the organization was awarded a technical assistance grant from the Department of Treasury in 2021 to help fund operations, and that put the organization on a path to try to seek certification as a full CDFI. And that needs to happen, that application needs to happen by the end of the year. And so in partnership with that effort, we're applying for another technical assistance grant that will look at how the organization is funded over the next several years. So that would involve in that application, which will be submitted sometime in the next 24 hours. No pressure, no pressure at all. But it is due tomorrow, and so that lays out where do we want to be over the next 3 years. And so when you put all that together, we're on a path to hopefully become a full CDFI. But in the meantime, we have to write a strategic plan to do that. In the grant application, it talks about hiring additional staff, Mary, to help with the lending process. To become certified, that costs some money, so we anticipate hiring a consultant for that, for instance. I am right now the only staff member, but it would help fund those operations. We have an agreement with the Community Foundation. I anticipate it helping with that as well. So just for background, the Community Foundation is the fiscal sponsor, as Tina said. And so we have a fee-based arrangement, so we have financial management assistance from the Community Foundation controller and other things. I'm housed in the Community Foundation. So all those operational things happening over the next year and beyond would be part of that plan that we would come back to and say, here's the operational support. If we're lucky enough to get that grant, we wouldn't know till much later this year, and so all that coming together is going to give us a pretty good idea of what the operational capacity is of the organization for the next 3 years at least.
Other questions?
I have a question. If and when you get additional grants, would the 250 shift back at some point to capital, or like would that be replaced?
Right now, I would anticipate it staying in operations because if we continue on this trajectory, we anticipate being able to raise additional capital to lend. So having that operational support and being able to expand the capacity will allow us to do more fundraising, not just fundraising for lending, but also fundraising for operations. So we've got to be on a path, and that's a requirement of ours. So I would anticipate, just in full disclosure, keeping it in operations if that's agreeable to those here. And see where we go from there.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions from the group? So, hearing none, anything from Dee, did you have something?
No, the motion would be to approve the resolution 24-XX because we don't have a resolution number for it yet. But it just basically explains everything we just talked about, moving the 250,000 from the larger amount to operations specifically. So,
Do we give it a number, or we're just?
legal will give me a number.
So legal will give us the XX
Yes.
of the 24.
Yes.
So.
I'll have that. Sorry, just a point of order on the resolution. So legal does not actually believe that this requires an additional resolution, that the use is included in the 2019 or 2018 MOU.
2018 MOU, which
Yeah.
is also included in there for your review. So.
But that the board, if you would like to memorialize it with a resolution, you should do that and feel like it's an opportunity to mark the support, but it's not legally required.
Okay.
So,
All
additional context.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you, Jane. Well, we need to vote on it either way, so I think just, we have approval of a resolution here, so let's just, I guess, continue with that path, and legal will provide the official XX for us. So are there any other final questions or comments before?
I guess if we do pass this, then are those in point 3, the detailed plan, reserving the right to review and approve, are all of those things also in the original
Those are all in the original MOU, actually, for,
Oh, in the MOU,
the
okay,
Yeah.
all right.
entire amount.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Those-
Okay. All right. Good discussion. So do we have a motion to approve shifting $250,000 of the original $1 million from capital to operations? And this would be resolution 24XX when we get the number. Is there a motion?
I'll move approval of resolution 24XX.
Okay, Mary. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Kate? All right. We know, Jane, you're recusing yourself. All others in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you.
I will send all of the required documents as soon as possible.
Okay, thanks, Steve.
Good.
Thank you all.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you,
Bye.
Tina.
Thanks for being
Bye,
here.
guys.
See you guys. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you,
I didn't know it was going.
Great, great. Okay, so So now going back up to our financial reports. Cheryl, November reports for us.
Sorry, my chair is hitting the table. Yes, so we are reviewing November's financial statement. So if we look at the profit and loss for the month of November, $8,334.94 was brought in as income during November. This amount is derived from three areas. Bank interest being in the amount of $8,135.36. RRF loan late fees in the amount of $2.84. RRF loan interest in the amount of $196.74. On the expense side, Arts Zone grant category was the only area that we distributed money, and that was in the amount of $6,750. Other income came from CD interest in the amount of $203.07. So the net income, which is income minus expense for the month of November, was $1,788.01. Now, if we switch over to the balance sheet for November, your total checking and savings balance as of November 30th was $3,007,035.99. And that is derived from the four different banks that are listed there. First Financial, German American, IU Credit Union, and People's State Bank. So First Financial had a total of $2,480,302.93. German American had $217,568.42. IU Credit Union balance is $204,223.37. People's State Bank balance was $104,941.27.
Cheryl,
Yes.
I'm sorry, real quick, just remind me again, of those three accounts, German American, IU Credit Union, People's State Bank, are all of those CDs or are those?
They're all CDs.
Those are all CDs right now, okay, that's what I thought, okay. All right, thank you.
You're very welcome. For other assets that are long-term notes receivable, your total is $191,018.62. So your combined assets end up being $3,198,054.61. So if we switch over to your profit and loss budget versus actual highlights, from January 1st through November 30th, the income of $367,810.02 was received, which is 62.98% of your budget. Your budget being $584,004. The big change since October, the October report, reflects me being able to correct, basically, the banking interest that was formerly located under banking services charges.
Yeah.
So you'll see that corrected. So on the expense side, you'll see the banking service charges now is zero instead of as a credit. Okay. I was very happy to see that happen.
In the bottom line. I
Yes, it
happy
was.
to see that too.
Yes.
See
So-
that, so membership fee difference, is that a missing or late
no,
payment?
that is me not knowing how to do a budget when I started.
Oh.
Because I had to write the budget 2 weeks after I started.
You
so.
did great. I was gonna ask if we should explain that.
I was waiting for the question.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's happened several times
Yeah.
in the last few months.
Yeah.
And you weren't here to hear it.
Yeah, sorry.
So,
Quick question.
Sure.
So on the loan repayments, where does that Where do we see that in the, just the cash statement, flow statement? Is it just going to our, is it only showing up on our balance sheet, or is it?
Yes,
Okay.
it is only showing up on the balance sheet.
Well,
It's
it's loan
combined in
interest,
here as your actual, but it's not individually listed.
Okay, gotcha.
I thought that showed up as loan interest, doesn't it?
Yeah, I see it as loan
It's
interest.
under loan interest,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not individually listed,
Right.
only on the balance sheet.
Gotcha.
Are all of the loans, are they current right now?
No, they're not.
No, they are not. We have at least 3 that are delinquent at this point in time. And, I think that, and this also reflects what's happening with the food and beverage loans as well. A lot of people, like in the last few months of 2023, got behind by a month or 2. But at this point, people are kind of like, anybody who's like a month or 2 behind is starting to catch up on that. Right now, I am working with the controller's office, and we actually have a plan.
Okay.
So we're getting that together, and as soon as that is shored up, I would like to talk about our options for the BUEA, but I want to kind of get a good plan with that right now. I am going to reach out to all of the loan holders at this point in time and let them know what's going on. So
My concern, just managing accounts like this, it tend to snowball to where it just becomes too much of a burden.
Yeah, and I think that, having a lengthier discussion about it is something that the board needs to do, and we need to consider all options on those loans.
I think we spoke about it before, but being delinquent, that was 3 months, or was it 6 months?
We have people that are anywhere from 3 months to, I think, to a year behind. Which is why we do need to consider all options on the loans at this juncture.
One option, obviously could be amortize it out a little bit longer, but,
Yeah, that seems like a good, maybe for our next meeting, we could put some focus on that. Because I did go back and look at the balance sheet from the first balance sheet of 23, and I know there is at least one business on here that hasn't made it, to your point, hasn't made a payment for several months,
And
nearing
some
a
of those,
year,
and some of those
so.
business have completely dissolved. So,
That was gonna be my question.
Yeah.
Are they all in?
Yes.
Some of these here.
Summer.
we do have a couple that have completely dissolved, but they also need to file the paperwork to make all of that official to close that out. So those are also things that we need to get on to take care of that, so.
Are you free to identify which ones those are?
I'd rather not at this time.
Yeah, all right. Well, I tell you what, since we do have some that are pretty far out and whatnot, maybe next meeting, we could put a little focus on that, if that gives you enough runway, Dee, on that, of bringing something together, so we can help resolve any of those that are just simply not operating and filing for, so dissolution or whatnot, so, all right, great, thank you.
I
Okay.
think too, if we don't want to specifically say who it is in our meetings, that's fine too, right? Like, because, like, in the next meeting, it can just be like, there are like 2 that are like 3 months, right? So,
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good.
Just being a board, being completely public, is there, it seems like shouldn't have a problem talking about just the financials on the.
Oh, yeah, we can talk numbers all we want.
Yeah.
I just don't know. I know that as a former business owner, I wouldn't feel comfortable with someone talking about my business at a public meeting.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I guess
Yeah.
I get that, but these are also public dollars,
Public
and so
dollars, that's right.
I feel like, the loans were made with public dollars, and that if anybody wants to know that is, people could request that information.
sure.
Yeah.
So.
Obviously legally, I just, what could we talk about and not talk about when it comes to people's accounts? Because when you apply for the loan, you're applying for public dollars. They're
Right.
fully aware of it as they ask for the dollars, but, it'd be nice to know that, but.
Yes, that might be in the loan application or the loan
Mhm.
And I'll look into it.
Yeah.
I would just also note that if businesses are delinquent, it's not because they're excited about ditching their responsibilities, and there is, I think, a potential harm that can be done by associating the name with that business's delinquency, and so I would think we could have a really robust discussion at our public meeting by just assigning loan numbers and describing the activity. And,
Great.
you know, there's what we're legally allowed to do, and then there's the good faith.
We wouldn't want to harm anyone.
Yeah.
Actually, my concern was more how, are there ways some assistance could be offered or some
To a
Yeah.
specific business.
support?
Yeah, I think that is definitely worthy of a longer discussion, yeah.
All right, well, let's put that on tap for next meeting if we can make that happen.
Sure.
That would be great. Thank you. All right. Sorry, Cheryl.
Oh,
Back to
no
you.
problem. Actually, the rest of it is very few changes, just because we didn't have a lot of grants distributed. So if we look at the other expenses that happened, the zone art category, the new total is $47,550, which is, 18.88% over your budget, which, in other areas you're way under, so I don't think that's a problem. Looking at zone improvement grants, this category remains unchanged at $14,313.90 distributed thus far. The amount of all of your grants distributed, total is $110,363.90, which is 27.47% of your $401,750 budget. The scholarships category remains unchanged at $7,006.42 as being dispersed. That brings us down to the total expense. 22.9% of your budget has been dispersed thus far as of November 30th, which amounts to $119,662.29. Through November 30th, your net income total is $251,602.69, which includes the CD interest in the amount of $3,454.96.
Just a question on the resident scholarships. I thought we had a lot of people, I thought we maxed that out, but we didn't?
I didn't know we
And
did
this
not.
year, people just didn't apply?
We had many people apply. Some of them had already maxed out their limit.
The lifetime limit, right?
And then some people, so I tried to push as many people who applied in the first cycle, if I exhausted all those limits, I moved them to the next group, and I tried to get them in and tried to do that as far as I could. But yeah, we didn't
Oh,
max
okay.
it out. There's definitely going to be more of an effort to do that. We're working with Jane was lovely enough to bring one of her amazing interns over. And she's assisting me in figuring out how to do a more robust marketing plan for our grants and having more materials out to people. So
Great.
Very good. Any other questions on the financials year-to-date, November 23? I think next meeting we'll have maybe December and January.
Yes, you will.
Okay. All right, great.
I just wanted to add a note that Cheryl is now serving as the city's deputy controller, and we're excited about that, and also grateful that she'll still be supporting the BUEA.
Yep.
So, thanks, Cheryl.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, very good. Okay, so we need a motion on the financial reports to approve. Motion?
So moved.
I'll
So
second.
moved to approve, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'll
Okay.
second.
All right, so we have Jane and Chris. All those in favor? Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you. Dee, you want to talk to us about some movement of funds into a CD?
So I actually would like to carry this over to March, but I can explain to you what it is. I unfortunately did not get a chance to talk to First Financial. Actually, that's not entirely true. I did speak to them, but because I don't have any control over any of the accounts, I can't get any guarantees or definite things. So essentially what's happened is that our CD at Great American, or I'm sorry, Great American, German American, has expired. So the money is just sitting there. Now, what we can do is move it into a 9-month certificate, which has about a 5% interest rate, which is great. So Jane and I were kind of spitballing about some of this money, and we thought maybe moving some of the First Financial funds into that CD as well might be a great idea, because the First Financial account is getting, it has a 3.6% interest rate. So if we were to move a substantial chunk into a certificate at German American, we would definitely be making more of a profit on that money. So that's the nuts and bolts of that. However, once again, because I don't have any control or power in the accounts, I can't really negotiate that with First Financial as to whether they could give us a better rate than German American. So
basically, you'll find out what's going on at First Financial and what options might be there, and then come back to the board with a proposal, maybe at the March meeting?
yes, I would like your backing, because as a signer, you're able to be like, you're able to ask, and once they guarantee it to you, you will have it. But if I say, hey, and they're like, sure, we can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, happy to.
Great.
Okay, cool.
All right, so it sounds like this is tabled until next month, but in
Yes.
the meantime, we'll have paperwork for updating signatures.
Yes.
So signature cards with the banks, and then Jane, you'll be able to explore the possibilities of moving some money into a CD where we can earn a higher percentage. All right, okay, great. So let's see, under new business, we still have director's report from Dee.
And actually, I would like to table that until March, because I would really like for Jane to speak to the Novo Nordisk acquisition of Catalent, and just be able to speak to that and maybe answer a few questions.
Yeah, well-
Because we only have 10 minutes
Yeah,
left, so.
I'm happy to do that.
Okay.
I don't, in full disclosure, I don't have a ton of information, but I can tell you that broadly, this looks like a really positive thing for Bloomington. The BUEA has a relationship with Catalent through its existing enterprise zone investment deductions. Those are generally non-transferable from business to business, but during the previous transition from Cook Pharmica to Catalent effectively retained an EZID by filing a DBA. So I assume that will be possible in this instance, but we'll be working with legal and the company to make sure that it's thorough and above board if there's an effort to do that. They have 4 active layers right now.
They have 3 active layers.
Okay.
With an additional
4th on the way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's a significant benefit to them. The city also has an approved tax abatement for 2022 personal property expansion that was approved but has not yet been activated. I think everyone's probably aware that they were poised for significant growth, and then the COVID vaccine market didn't expand in the way that was anticipated, so some of their operations were paused or reduced, and they had staff reductions. The staff reductions, as far as I understand, their reductions from 2022 placed them at the level that they were at prior to COVID growth. So the growth associated with Wegovy is a little different. Everyone needed COVID vaccines, but the entire country isn't taking them every year, whereas Wegovy is, I don't know what the term is.
It's
lifetime.
kind of a forever drug.
It's a forever drug, yeah. And I saw a statistic that 1 in 8 people are taking these drugs now. Not necessarily Wegovy, but there are 2 or 3 of them on the market. So just in terms of growth, that's likely to be positive for Bloomington and for the site. And then Novo's reputation as a company is really high as well. I mean, just based on my cursory research. So ultimately we feel positive, but there's a lot of work to do to make sure that I's are dotted and T's are crossed for the benefits.
Jane,
Amy, you talked about, I must miss it, the layers? You say
Yeah.
3 and then you.
Yeah,
what is
so each time a company makes a new personal property investment, they're eligible to apply for a new EZID. And we call them layers because they overlap. So they might be in year 3 for their first personal property investment, but year 1 for their second. And they can overlap. They last 10 years, so they can.
Remind me, EZIT, what's it?
Enterprise Zone Investment Deduction.
Okay, gotcha.
And this is obviously the tool by which the enterprise zone earns revenue. It's technically the program exists for real property and personal property, but the real property abatements are not approved because they're subordinated to the TIF. So if the location where the real property investment is made is also in the TIF, then it's not approvable. However, if it's a personal property investment made within the TIF, it is approvable. And so this could mean anything from a kitchen build out at a restaurant to, adding a fill line at a contract drug manufacturing organization. So it can end up being pretty significant. The change in real property versus personal property, that shift was made when the TIF was consolidated. So prior to that, there were, like a lot of the large apartment buildings had active EZIDs. So these act like abatements. 80% 10-year abatements is basically what they act like. The 20% value of the savings comes back to the enterprise zone directly. So that's where our revenue comes from. I'm telling this in a really backwards way. I wasn't planning to talk about this, so I could do it in a more orderly way another time. But anyway, yeah, so that's how that operates.
This is helpful. So do we have like a sense of, so I know Catalent with their layers that were a pretty big chunk of fees for us coming in for 2024 in our budget. Do we have a sense of any timing with Novo Nordisk potentially, could this impact? I suppose the answer to that is yes, it could, but do we have any sense of timing and whether this is a real possibility of impacting revenue for our budget this year?
You mean either the loss or through new investment?
Yeah.
It wouldn't impact it for 2024 because what we receive in 2024 is 23 pay 24.
Okay, so
it would be a
arrears,
2025 phenomenon.
Okay. So
But-
we'll know more than when we set our budget for 2025, what their,
We will definitely know by then.
okay,
Yeah.
all right, that's good to
And
know.
then there's a compliance factor too, right? Where we'll know what they're approved for, but if they're not compliant with their forms or anything, then that would be the other thing that would disqualify them from being able to earn the savings and for us to earn the revenue.
Well, thank you for that update.
Yeah, happy to.
Appreciate it. I mean, from what I read, it seems like they're a good company and
Yeah.
they are philanthropic and want to be part of their community. So let's hope so.
Yeah.
All right, great. Thank you. Have 5 minutes left. Is there anything that anyone has for the good of the order? Or Dee, did you want to? I know one thing. Next month
yes.
is spring break meeting time. Is that an issue for committee members? So we can get a sense right now of whether we're not going to have quorum ahead of time.
Well, I'm not trying to make you guys jealous or anything, but I'll be in Nebraska for spring break, so.
Nice.
But I'm happy to remote
How
in.
far from Lincoln?
Depends how fast you drive.
Oh, boy, okay. All right.
So that's scheduled for March 13th. So.
And that is our official community spring break week, and just want to know if we
Yeah, does anyone
have
know if they will, aside from Jane, does anyone know they will
I was
absolutely
not.
attend?
I have no problem.
a problem.
Do it.
I would maybe just be remote.
Okay.
If that's okay.
That's fine.
I'm good.
You're good? All right. All right.
Okay.
Wow, that was easy. Thanks, everybody. We'll be meeting for spring break while Jane's in Nebraska.
I'm gonna hold you all to it.
All right. Anything else for the?
No.
Okay. All right. If none, then a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Chris, second.
Second.
Second. Michael. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, aye.
Any opposed? All right. Great.
Bill, great to see you.